was a much needed victory as a team and a program, and we celebrated it. And then you got to get back to work and evaluate and find ways to enhance and improve. There's obviously areas of growth in all three phases, and we got to get back to work and do that. It was good to get a lot of meaningful game experience for a lot of young players, and that's invaluable. And you know, in that environment, in those crucial situations, we're going to be better because of it. You know, I know a lot of talk about the defense, and you know, as you evaluate it, you know, I think it's really two areas, and you know, the man coverage. When we're playing man right now, we got to play with better fundamentals, right? Better fundamentals and technique, and that's going to help you execute at a higher level. You know, or you might have to change a technique that you've been playing with in order to give yourself a better chance to execute at the level we need. And the same thing I probably would say would go with pass rush. It's the fundamentals and the technique that we're rushing with that can help us get more pressure or stay in our lanes. And then as you evaluate the zone coverage aspect, you know, if you're getting beaten man and you're playing zone, you change up and play some zone. There's holes in zone coverages that are only covered up by how fast you play, right? And recognition of routes and different concepts and breaking off the quarterback. We're just not playing right now with the velocity in some of our zone defenses to cover up some of, you know, the open areas that zone defense presents. And so it's our job as coaches to make sure that we attack those issues, those areas, and get them to play with faster velocity, get them to execute at a higher level, because that's what matters. It doesn't matter what the issues are. We have to continue to find ways to get them to perform at a higher level. And so I know I'm confident we will, and we got to go to work and really work on improving as we get ready for a extremely talented Arkansas team. All right, they're 2-2, but if you watch their games, they have a chance to win both of those losses in the last drive, and so it could easily be 4-0. It's a top 5 offense in the country, so the challenge for the defense doesn't get any easier. They're going to face a top 5 offense, and their defense is good. They got a solid defense that, you know, the one number 97, he's a load, and I think their whole defense up front, their whole defense is big, you know, and it's going to present a big challenge for our offensive line. And so we're looking forward to a great environment. I think it'll be loud. It's going to be. I've never been down there. I know this is our first meeting with Arkansas, and so be a great challenge. And we're looking forward to the opportunity. So with that, open up for questions.
Third row on your right, up the middle, Tim O'Malley.
Coach, 2 personnel questions quickly. Madden Faremo making his way into the lineup along with more time from Elijah Hughes. Can you just discuss what they did the last couple of weeks to earn that role?
You know, I think it goes back to the confidence build in practice, right? Is that both of those guys are starting to build more confidence in their coaches and their teammates with the way they're practicing, and both played pretty well on Saturday. They both did some really good things, and you know, Elijah's an older player, but Matt is a younger guy that is like the other freshman. Like, he's really improving and made some mistakes, but the way they're practicing and learning how to practice is really helping gain confidence to put them on the field more.
Third quarter defensively and early fourth has been the best stretch in every game. I know Miami scored, but then you stopped in 3 in a row. In the past, you guys have prided yourselves on adjusting series to series before halftime. How do you guys get back to that level defensively?
You know, I wish I know as you look back, and it's a unique situation where we're playing well in the third quarter. We got to find ways to play well on every play, you know, and that's the mentality. They're going to make, every offense is going to make some plays, but how do we continue to find ways to not let the bad play turn into a disastrous play is our challenge. So I think the ability to get that corrected is you got to focus on this play. I don't know if it's as much as an adjustment as much as like we got to figure out why the lack of execution on the plays that are causing the points and the explosive plays, and unfortunately a lot are happening in the second quarter.
Front row on your left, Tyler Horka.
Kind of going off of that, the goal is clearly to be a more consistent 60-minute defensive football team, but I am curious if there's anything to preparing your team for a type of game that they might play, in that they might have to outscore somebody to win, especially with this Arkansas opponent or some of the other teams later on the schedule.
Yeah, I think that's something we've always said, no matter how well the offense is doing or how well the defense is doing, is offense got to score one more point. And defense, you got to hold them to 1 point less. And we don't have we never go into the game and say, hey, our objective is to score 60 points and we think our defense is going to give up 50. No, that's not the objective. The objective is, hey, whatever, no matter what it takes, we got to score one more point. And no matter what it takes, we got to keep them to 1 point less. And so the ability to do that is just to, I think you got two groups that got to continue. There's different challenges to improve, right? But they both got to focus on how to get better, all right? And offensively, we got to be able to understand, like, okay, we played really, really well. Point the finger at everybody else, but also how do we make this thing better? How do we handle success? And I believe that, you know, our coaching players do. And defensively, all right, how do we handle some adversity, right? How are we going to find ways to correct this? And the only way to do that is to point the finger at yourself, right? And to say, okay, this is ours. It's all of us. It's not one person. It's not one call. It's why aren't we executing? And, okay, did this explosive play happen? It's on me. It's on everybody. And if we do that, we'll both get better at a faster rate.
Anthony Knapp is playing really well in the run blocking game. He's had some lapses with pass pro. I know you guys were looking at the right side of the offensive line a little bit earlier in the season. I'm curious where you are with the left side and just like across the board, how you feel about the five guys you're putting out there.
I'm as confident in the entire offensive line as I've ever been. You know, I know we gave up the sack, and Knapp will take ownership of it. CJ is going to take ownership of it. You know, they brought a boundary pressure. You know, we got to know what type of speed's coming off that edge with the safety. CJ's got to understand and recognize, okay, it is a pressure. Maybe I got to drift away or get the ball out. But I'm as confident in all five of those guys as I've ever been.
Back row on your right, Drew Mentok.
You mentioned Dallas Golden is blessed with some traits few other players have, and you spent a lot of time on his mentality, but what physical gifts does he have that really stand out, and how high do you think his ceiling is?
I think his ceiling is extremely high. He is extremely athletic, talented. He's got a lot of playmaking ability. As you watch him in high school, he's probably as good on the offensive side as he was in the defensive side. He is an athletic player, and he wants to be great. He wants to be coached. You know, we moved him to nickel last Monday, and for him to put himself in a position to play 60, I don't know how many plays, he plays 60, 70 plays. And it's a testament to the work he's put into it, but also his ability. You know, like any freshman in your first game, there was some ups, there was some downs, but I'm very confident in where he's headed.
Jared Dawson played 37 snaps in each of the first two games, but I don't think he played any last game. What kept him off the field on Saturday?
Yeah, he didn't have a chance to. He didn't practice later in the week. He was a little banged up, and he was available for the game, but because he didn't practice later in the week, we said, hey, let's hold him unless it's an emergency, and never felt like we had to get him in there. He'll be ready to go this week, and he'll play for us.
Second row on your left, Tyler James.
Marcus, Tim mentioned the improved third quarter defensive performances. I'm curious, specific to Purdue, what do you feel like went better in that third quarter that can be applied moving forward?
You know, it's the execution of what's called. We got pressure, right? We were getting some pressure on the quarterback. Didn't give him a lot of time to kind of go through his progression. I thought for the most part of the entire game, we did a good job of stopping the run, and we didn't give up the catastrophic passes. Now, there might have been a time somebody was open, he didn't catch the ball, or the quarterback didn't see him. The result was better, but, you know, again, there's not something specifically in that third quarter other than, hey, I thought we did a good job of getting some pressure on the quarterback. that I say, this is what we got to continue to do, right? We just got to continue to execute in both of those areas that I mentioned in the opener, right? And we have to, there's not guys running free, right? It's not like they don't know what they're doing, but how do we continue to get them in the zone coverage defense to play with the clarity that it takes to cover up open gaps and open space when you play zone and in the man coverage, you know, we got to be able to use the proper technique. You know, you're there, but you don't make the play. You know, I don't always want to say good throw, good catch. Like, we got to stop them. And with the guys that we have, like, you know, you can't use the excuse that Leonard's not out there, or Devontae, and guys that have experience. The guys we put out there, we believe, are good enough to execute what we call. So we got to get them to play with the exact technique that we believe it's going to take to make sure they have success on that play.
Leonard has to get healthy first, but I'm curious, is he getting to a point where you can just put him on the best receiver that the opponent has? And if that is a consideration, how does that change what you want to do defensively in the secondary?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's as good as I've been around at that position. And, you know, we've had discussions if we need to match him up with the best wide receiver, and no matter where he's at, we will. But you also got to do a good job being able to do that and play some zone. You know, we can't just tell the offense, hey, we're playing man. Right, we're playing man, you know, because no defense is good enough to just say, hey, we're playing man, and every play, stop them, right? And so we have considered that. We've talked about it. We need to get him available and ready to go before we can do that. And that might be this week. We're still questionable right now, but we'll see if that's what we decide to do.
Right side, Tim Priester.
You were aggressive defensive coordinator. Al Golden was an aggressive defensive coordinator here. There were some numbers out there over the weekend that indicated you're blitzing less, quite a bit less from last year. Is it just that you don't feel like you're getting home well enough, let alone in the, you know, with a 4, but with a 5 as well, 5 or 6?
Yeah, I think as you evaluate the first 2 games, some of the pressures that we did call, we didn't get enough pressure on the quarterback, no matter if it was a zone pressure or a man pressure, to warrant, hey, you're going to have 1 less defender or maybe 2 less defenders, but we're not getting the ball out of the quarterback's hand fast enough. And so if we're going to bring pressure, we got to get home. And we're not going to stop bringing pressure. Like, we have to, and we know that as a coaching staff. But we got to do a better job of winning our one-on-ones when we do bring pressure, because you can't ask the DBs to cover with 1 or 2 less defenders for an extended period of time if you're going to bring pressure. So we got to execute those pressures better, but we'll be aggressive.
I know you're talking about the technical aspects of improving defensively, but would there ever be a situation where you would consider Mike Elko took over the pre-snap play calling defensively? Would there ever be a time where you would do that, or pass it on to somebody else on the staff?
If I thought it was a call, if I thought we weren't calling the game the right way, like, trust me, I know the definition of insanity, you know, and if that was the case, you got to do what's best for your program. But that's not, to me, the issue when I'm evaluating our defensive play. It's not what we're calling at this time or why we're calling it. It's, okay, why aren't we executing, right? It's not me saying I'm going to call the defense it's a call. If I'm going to call the defense, then it's based on a call. We're not calling the right calls. I don't believe that's true. Or I would say, hey, Chris Ash, call this. You know, it's okay, we called this for this reason, and it didn't work. They executed an explosive play. Okay, what's the reason behind it, right? And that's what we spent a lot of time evaluating and discussing. And so how do you get them to execute it at a better level or play with the right fundamentals? I think it still starts with a buy-in, like, of it's me, everybody. Like, I think right now we got to make sure in our football facility that we're not pointing a finger at a call. We're not pointing a finger at if he would have called something else or if he would have did. We're pointing a finger at ourselves is, what am I not doing to execute this call the right way? If I'm confused, then you better speak up and say something, right? Because you're going to be held accountable, right? But if we do this and we do this, we'll get it fixed. And that's the challenge during tough times, right? I get excited like when I talk, like during tough times, like there's two options. You fight or flight. And the guys that flight blame other people. It's the call. It's his fault. It's this coach's fault, or it's that player's fault. We gave up a big play. That corner should have covered him. That's the flight mode. You deflect and blame other people. But the fight mode is, gosh, man, call man again. Call man again. I promise you my man's not going to catch the ball. I'm going to play with the right technique, and I'm going to refuse to let my man catch the ball. Put the pressure. Man, I got to coach this better. I got to coach this better. He should have known that this is the technique to play with. Okay, I got to change his technique. Like, and that's the fight mode. But in order to do that, everybody's got to be bought in. Everybody's got to believe that we have the answers. It's not a person. It's not Marcus Freeman should be calling the defense. We have the answers. We got to all buy in and execute this the right way. And that starts with leadership. That starts from the top down. And that's my job, but also Chris Ash's job. It's our coach's job on down to our players. You have to create the buy-in to what we're doing and the ownership of it. If we get that, we'll get it corrected with urgency. If we don't, if we do this, it's your fault. You shouldn't have called that. You're a bad coach. Then it's going to be bad. And I know our culture ain't going to let that happen.
Front row on your left, Jack Sobel.
Coach Freeman, sorry. Taylen Green, he's kind of a not the same player as Marcel Reed, but a similar challenge where he can hurt you with his legs, but if you just contain and don't rush him, he can hurt you with his arm. What can you do differently or better than you did against Texas A&M against that kind of quarterback?
Yeah, you can't, he, in the run game, his ability to read and pull it, like you got to be definitive in how you want to defend that. You can't be gray. You got to be definitive on how you want to defend that. But in the pass game, you can't let him escape vertically. Like that's where our issues were with the A&M quarterback. Even last week, it's not the lateral escape, it's the vertical through the B gap. Then lateral, you can extend plays or he can run. That's where the issues are. So we have to be technical sound in our rush lanes, right? But I don't want to play spy. I think we got into a little bit of too cautious versus A&M where we're trying to play spy and we're not being aggressive. And then maybe versus Purdue, there's too many times maybe we're behind the quarterback and he escapes in the B gap. So it's obviously a good mixture of both, but we can't let him get vertical in the pass game and extend plays with his legs because it's going to be an issue.
And then you mentioned your confidence in the offensive line is better than it's ever been. You said last week that they got much better from week 1 to week 2. Like, what specific improvements did you feel like they made from game 1 to game 2 and then game 2 to game 3?
I think probably more 1 to 2 was probably the pass protection and the ability to keep, CJ protected. And from 2 to 3, I don't know how many rushing yards we had, but they did a heck of a job in the run game. And I say there's bodies on bodies, man. That's, when you see big guys covering up big guys and the wideouts, like the perimeter blocking was as good as I've seen. I told that to Coach Brown, like, that's as good of perimeter blocking execution that I've seen, right? And you're seeing the buy-in from wideouts to say, all right, hey, if we don't have to throw the ball, we won't throw the ball. But in order to be able to score points, sometimes we need you to block. We're not going to ask you to just go run down the field. And they're buying into. There was some huge block. I remember Jaden Greathouse. Him and Faison had a block on Jay Love's touchdown, somebody's touchdown. I don't remember. And I'm like, if we're not, Jay Love, he gets enough credit. If we're not loving up Jaden Greathouse and Jordan Faison for how they're blocking right there and our O-line, man, like, that's what I want to celebrate. That unselfish, tough, gritty play. That's what great offenses they have, and great teams have that.
Front row on your right, Eric Hansen.
Hey, Coach, you spoke Saturday night about Jadarian Price's unselfishness and so forth. In this day and age, I think nobody would have been surprised if he had gone somewhere else. I'm wondering what those off-season conversations were like, and just if you can expand a little bit more on what kind of person and player he is.
You know, I think, one, you give credit to his mother and the way he was raised. He's not a me guy. He's a selfless individual that is going to take advantage of his opportunities, but do everything to help this team be successful. And I wish I could take credit for that. He was raised the right way. His mother's an incredible woman. And, you know, I'm sure he probably had people that did want him. And it's a credit to his belief in this university, his belief in this football program, that he can reach all the goals that he has being right here at Notre Dame in the same running back room with Jeremiah Love and some of those other guys. There's a belief that he has in this place, this university, this football program. So there's not something I'm sure I've said to him for him to be like that. He was raised the right way, and he's a team-first guy. And that's why, I mean, I can't praise him anymore, because if we get a 105 players to be that, it's going to be pretty special, you know? And that's what I want to praise more than anything.
And then I wanted to circle back to a follow-up to Tim Priester's question about the defense. And it's not unique to this year, and it's not unique to this program, but there does feel like there's times the preseason process creates some mirages about your team. And you're a question everything guy. What have you kind of discovered that you might be able to use in the future toward that not being the case with the defense, and how difficult it is to push the process of doing it now when you're in game weeks?
Yeah. You know, I think our defense in fall camp was really executing at a high level. No matter what we were calling, they were doing a good job. I think as you look at the first two opponents, you know, I think not having some of the guys that were playing with the ones out there at crucial positions can affect, because it's not saying the guys in there aren't good enough. It's like, hey, it affects how you call it, right, or what you want to call. And, you know, we still have the core of what we are defensively, what we're going to call. You don't want to create something. And so I think you got a couple guys at our new positions that haven't played, that are going through the natural growing pains of playing big-time college ball. And we have to live with that. We have to live with that. Like, we're never okay with a loss of a game or a loss on a play. Like, it's not okay. But we have to understand, like, great things take time. You learn from being exposed sometimes. You learn from that. And that goes for our defense period, not even a player. It goes for our defense period. And that, I remember when I was the defense coordinator here, those first two games were rough, right? And there's heat, right? And it's hot in that chair. But as I said earlier, you got one or two options. You double down on what you believe, and you get the people you're leading to believe in what you're doing, or you point fingers. And I know the result of both. I know it. And so we have to do that. And that's what we spent a lot of time doing yesterday as a defensive staff. It's not a comfortable meeting, and I didn't want it to be comfortable. But we got one or two options, as I told them. We're going to do this and get our guys better and believe in what we're doing, or we'll separate. And if we separate, it's not going to be good for anybody. It's not. And so that's what now it's got to trickle down to our players. That's got to trickle down to our players, because outside of the football facility, you know what it is. We got blame. Somebody's got to take blame. Somebody's got to take blame. That's our world. Somebody's taking blame, you know? And so they're hearing that, right? And they're not in our facility as much as they are in the real world. So if you hear that and you start to believe it, you're right, let's blame. We got to make sure the minute they walk in there, it's like, hold on now. We ain't pointing a finger at no one person, no one player, no one coach, right? We're pointing a finger at ourselves and say, we're going to do whatever it takes to get this thing fixed because we believe in it, we believe in each other, and we believe in this coaching staff.
Up the middle to the left, Sean Stiers.
Hey, Marcus, both in your, I guess, delay interview with NBC and then in the post game the other night, you were obviously, pretty frustrated with the, talking about the lack of the marriage between the front and.
I thought you were going to talk about the sack.
Go a little different, yeah. But the lack of marriage of those two things, the front and the secondary, and I mean, on their face, those two things seem like separately fairly simple. Why has it been so complicated to get those things to mesh so far?
Well, I think, again, when I say the front and the coverage have to work together, I'm using the philosophy of if we're going to play coverage, right, then our front has to beat some one-on-one blocks, right, and we got to at some point affect the quarterback, right? We're rushing forward, but usually they're protecting with 5 or 6, so somebody's getting a one-on-one. We got to be married up in our rush lanes and somehow affect the quarterback because we got 7 guys in coverage. If we are going to bring pressure, we have to know that there's a certain amount of time that quarterback can have because we're expecting our DBs and our back 7 or back 6, how many you bring, to cover for this amount of time, because when you're playing man or zone pressure defense, it's just you can't have a lot of time. You're down in a defender. So we have to do a better job in that area, right? When we're rushing forward, we cannot let the quarterback extend plays. We can't. We have to make sure we marry up that rush so that we're keeping him in the pocket but also affecting him, right? We have to get pressure. And when we bring pressure, man, we have to get home and we have to affect the quarterback because the DBs can't cover for that long.
Well, you talked about Green, a little bit ago, but the challenge of him, kind of the Arkansas quarterback. Yeah, like the challenge that he presents, again, when it goes back to that.
Yeah, it's going to be a great challenge, right? And I wish we can say we can just do one thing and we're going to impact them and affect him, but you're going to have to do multiple different things. They're the top 5 offense in the country for a reason, and so we got to continue to show different things, play different things. When you play zone coverage, you can't just tell them exactly what you're playing pre-snap either, right? And that's the other thing we got to continue to enhance that. It's hard to do with new players, right? With guys that haven't played a whole bunch of being able to say, okay, this is what we want you to do in the coverage, but we also want you to show this pre-snap, and it just takes time. It's going to take work to get them to understand that, but we're not going to be able to just rush him with 4, and we're not going to be able to just bring 5 or 6 guys after him. We have to mix it up and also mix up our pre-snaps disguises.
Last question for Coach Freeman, front row on your right, Pete Sampson.
Marcus, in terms of the offense, put the stats aside, 250. Is that kind of in your mind when the season started, like that's what I want it to look like? We can lean on a run game, obviously, but also like the pass game is more of a deep shot, kind of punish you that way.
Yeah, that's a great description of what we went into the season, said this is what we want our offense to be, is have the ability to run the ball, which opens up those big play shots, right? That opens up those explosive plays because they're saying, okay, hey, we got to stop the run. We got to bring an extra guy in the box. But we also know that if we got to pass the ball to have success, then we got to do it, right? And I have the confidence we will. But I believe we are a balanced offense, man. We are truly a balanced offense that prides ourselves on running the ball. And now you're seeing some really explosive plays through the air.
And